Okay, the recording has been started. I'm going to just do a sort of a quick intro. I think we have a lot of people on the call tonight who haven't been on here before. Thank you for joining. Welcome. I do also want to mention one thing. Last week, someone made a comment to me how great it was that so many people had their cameras on. So thank you for those of you who feel comfortable leaving your cameras on. It really I feel like it helps the conversation roll when you can see who's talking, and it certainly helps kind of create relationships when you can tell who's on this side. So if you're comfortable having your camera on, thank you. I think that makes this call even better when folks leave their cameras on. With that, I am ready to turn it over. Yoji, you want to take the lead on this and introduce all the folks that are helping you present tonight?
Sure, absolutely, Scott. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Scott, thank you for the opportunity to kind of present today. And I would like to just have everybody who's joining me kind of just quickly introduce themselves. And I'm just going to start. We're going to start with Team 1816 and Kaylee.
Hi, my name's Kaylee. I am a senior on Team 1816. And yeah, it's my third year. Nice to meet you all.
Great. Evelyn?
Hi, I'm Evelyn. I'm a freshman on Team 1816, and this is my kind of first year.
Kind of first year. She's been around a lot. Evelyn's been a member of the team for a number of years, unofficially. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allie Purdy. I am the faculty advisor on Team 1816.
Great. Let's go to Robettes. Madeline? Are you here? Thought she was here.
I think you might be muted, Madeline.
Yeah.
Still can't hear you.
Still can't hear you. Okay. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm John Strauss. I've been with the Robettes since the beginning, back in 2007. Happy to be here.
Great. Candace?
Hi, I'm Candace. I'm a business mentor for the Robettes and have been with the team for about 11 years now.
Great. We'll try again, Madeline. Can you give it one more shot? No, it's still not working. And John and Candace, is Emily here? I don't remember. I don't see her.
No, but we do have Anna.
Anna. Okay, Anna, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anna. I'm a sophomore on Team 2177, the Robettes, and this is my second year on the team.
Great. Thank you. All right. And hopefully, Madeline, we can get your microphone situation figured out. And then Team 5690, that's Sub-Zero. And we're going to start with Sophia.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm from Team 5690, and I'm a senior on the team. Yeah.
Great. Is Kaya here? Do you know, Sophia? And Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Scheider, head coach of 5690. Been with the team since the beginning, so thanks for joining, everybody.
Great, good. And Justin, is Kaya here? Do you know?
I do not see her on the list yet.
Okay, all right. So if she shows up, we'll introduce her.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so, and I'm Yoji Shimizu. I'm a first volunteer. I do a lot of work with 1816, particularly on things like core values. And I'm going to just basically set up the conversation tonight with just a couple of minutes of introduction and then kind of turn it back over to the teams. I know many of you who are on the call that I know have also have core values on your team. So I hope this can be a rich discussion about the importance of core values and kind of how your team is using them to kind of establish your team culture and also to help you with your decision making and the kinds of things that you want to do in accomplishing your mission. So first of all, like, what are we talking about when we're talking about core values? We're really talking about sort of principles or standards of behavior for a person or an organization. These are typically, somewhere between 4 to 8 kind of values that kind of define kind of who you are and also who you want to be. So they're really designed to kind of help clarify those questions, like what you stand for from the perspective of an FRC team. Is like why you're together as a team. What is it that you want to do? It's a way to kind of help you guide your kind of decision making, guide your behavior, kind of help determine if you're kind of on the right path. And they're really designed to kind of help you figure out how you're going to meet your mission. It's not defining what your mission is. It's sort of like how you're going to accomplish your mission, the way in which you're going to approach that. So, you know, when we think about core values, I think all of us who are part of FIRST Robotics, gracious professionalism is a fundamental core value in FIRST Robotics. So it's that kind of value that we're really kind of talking about. But I think even Woody Flowers indicated that gracious professionalism is kind of is essential, but it's not usually enough. That usually you have to think about other values that are going to be helpful for your team and setting your team culture and deciding who you want to be and how you want to approach things. There's another quote from a psychologist by the name of Angela Duckworth who said, "Nobody has passion and perseverance unless what they do aligns with their values." So these defining these values and what they are really important for guiding your overall team direction and where you want to go. So a little bit of history about how this kind of started, at least for me and for 1816. So we did a core value session in the fall of 2017 as part of the team retreat. So a team retreat for our team has been, you know, this yearly kind of event that we have that kind of introduce rookies and new people, new members of our team to our team. And we always do some team building kind of exercises there. In the fall of 2017, we decided to kind of try and figure out kind of what our core values were. And there were, I think, a couple of reasons why we decided to do it at that time. So I think we were still trying to figure out at that time kind of who we were as a team. And there were things that happened in the 2015 season, the 2016 season, the 2017 season that indicated to us that we may not have been completely on the same page with regard to what we wanted to do, and that we thought it would be important to have an activity where we would try and define those common principles that we wanted to have. And right around that time, I personally had joined a new unit in my day job at the university, and we went through this strategic planning process, and we went through a values exercise that actually I was pretty skeptical going into it, but it found it was really pretty valuable for us as a work unit. And so I brought that exercise to the mentors and the students at 1816 at that time, and we decided to give it a shot. That we would go through this exercise to help the team kind of figure out what their core values were. And the way we kind of approach this essentially is that we ask each team member and mentor to define 3 or 4 of their own most important personal core values, and then go through a process of helping everybody on the team kind of discuss and identify a really essential set of core values that define what they mean to the team. So in terms of how you kind of define core values, there are lots of ways you can do this. This is the approach that we've taken. I'm not going to go through a lot in terms of kind of exactly how that exercise works, because if you go to the First in the Upper Midwest website, you can see videos of things that we have put together that kind of take people through that process. And I'm happy to talk to anybody if you're interested in kind of doing this either by yourself or facilitated by someone like myself. We're happy to do this. So since 2017, actually, we've been facilitating core value sessions for other FRC teams. We've done this for about like 35 different teams now, most of them in Minnesota, but also some in other parts of the country. And it's been a really valuable activity, I think, for us and hopefully for the teams that have gone through it. So with that introduction, I think the question or the topics that we'd like to discuss, well, we're happy to go in any direction that you'd like, is like this whole process of kind of defining your core values is a fairly straightforward process. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of define exactly what those core values are, but in general, that can be done in a pretty straightforward manner. But it's also pretty easy to forget about them once you do it. So this is a common This is a common thing that happens in the work environment where you go through like a strategic planning process or you define these values. You do all that work, you put it on a shelf, and then you never look back to them. You never refer to them. You never use them ever again. That's kind of a failed exercise. I think it's there's not a lot of value in kind of having gone through this process if you actually don't use them. So the more difficult thing is actually to figure out how are you going to use them. And that's, I think, what we would really like to kind of focus on tonight, and maybe get some ideas about how different teams are using their core values. And hopefully for those of you maybe who haven't thought about doing this yet, maybe think about, would this be something that that your team would be interested in kind of developing and working on? So that's the setup. And I think what I'd like to do now is maybe just have each of the teams that's joining me tonight to kind of talk a little bit about kind of their approach to their core values, maybe talk about what their core values are if you'd like to, and then maybe talk about like what you feel has been particularly important about having them, and their value in sort of guiding what your team does and how it interacts, I guess. So maybe we can start with the green machine. So Kaylee, maybe you want to start?
Like just mention what our core values is, or go down the line, or like, do you want me to give an example of like what?
Sure, you can do. Yeah, good. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So our core values are respect, trust, inclusivity, commitment, and joy of life. And they all sort of guide specifically for us, which I have a feeling is sort of a common theme for a lot of other teams that have core values. They guide our outreach, a bunch of our activities, like, and how we sort of approach the build season and the off season. Especially like with activities and such, everything has to link. We like everything to link to a core value. So like when we do like team builders, or that's usually linked to inclusivity and joy of life. Like we went to Valley Fair last summer. We were going to go this summer, except it got really, really hot on the day that we were going to go. But that's like an example of our joy of life type thing. We've done, we do the Children's Hospital, and that gets us inclusivity. Like everything links us back to our core values and helps us do things other than build a robot, which is a major part of FIRST, but like not the only thing. FIRST is about spreading STEM. So
good, thank you. Robettes, Anna, maybe I'll start with you. Are you up for that, for talking about your core values?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, Madeline, you're there too.
Thanks for King. Finally. But Anna can help me with this too. I'm sorry to jump in, but
I can start. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
You want to go?
You can
Okay. Yeah. So our core values are compassion, integrity, curiosity, perseverance, and confidence. And I would say that a really big core value for me is perseverance, especially during build season when tensions get high and it gets rough. I really struggle with persevering and continuing to like keep brainstorming and continue coming up with robot ideas. So it's really important for me to have a set core value of perseverance, because it reminds me every day why I do robotics and why it's important for me to keep going.
That's great. Yeah, we use our core values to help us make decisions, guide us. For me, I personally connect with confidence, because through robotics, I've really grown my confidence. Even now, I still get so nervous to speak to judges and just like general public speaking. And so what we do is to practice confidence at our meetings. At the start of every meeting, we have each person stand up, say their name, grade, answer to the question of the day. And we just practice not using filler words, stuff like that, to improve our public speaking skills and have confidence when we talk.
Good, thank you. Sub-Zero, Sophia, I think Kaya, I see you on the line, on the list at least.
I can go ahead and start us off. So our core values, we have a few of them. They're acceptance, respect, kindness, integrity, confidence, and resilience, along with teamwork and fun. And so I think that our core values really help kind of set us apart from the other students in our school, and especially like the like more athletics focused kids. I think our team does a really great job of showing these every day in all of our activities. And so I'm very proud of our team for being able to follow through with these core values each day. It's very noticeable to teachers and to our friends and just the community that we've built compared to, you could say, the football team or the basketball team.
Kaya, Justin, anything to add?
I mean, she covered it really well, but yeah, I mean, yeah, no, she said it perfectly.
Good.
One of the things as being one of the coaches, I think exactly what Sophia said, this has made a big difference in our team, how we operate, and things like that. But it really does stand out with the different groups in our school, because we emphasize it not only when you're with our team and doing team activities, it's, every day you should try to strive for these core values throughout different areas of the school or different areas of your life. So I think that's made a huge impact on a lot of our kids.
So one of the things that I think core values can be helpful with is like in decision making, and particularly really difficult decisions. When you're not quite sure exactly which path to take. Are there examples of that kind of decision where you've had to really kind of lean on your core values to kind of figure out where you wanted to go?
I have something that sort of happened that led to the creation of core values from my understanding. I don't exactly remember what year it was in, and it wasn't when I was on the team. It was a few years back. But our team, the Green Machine, and this is before core values, I want to make that clear. Our team was offered by another really good team. I don't actually know the actual team number, to essentially cheesecake our robot. Anybody who doesn't know what cheesecaking is, I hope you guys all do. Essentially take something another team built and programmed and put it on your robot. And if we did that, we had a really good chance of getting to Einstein's. So it created a lot of conflict on our team about like what we should do. We could get to Einstein's. I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal, but also we didn't build it, and it would be sort of like cheating. So that created a lot of conflict from my understanding. And then fortunately I think we declined the offer. But that was like one of the things that was brought up when we were creating our core values, and sort of helped shape where our core values came from, which isn't exactly the question, but I think it's an important part of our core values.
Yeah, another area, at least 3926, where we've used our core values is at the beginning of this year, when we were discussing whether or not we wanted to be a low goal robot or a high goal robot. I think we used partially our core values to, decide that I think, from the perspective of the core values, it was like, are we sacrificing, because our core values are growth, inclusivity, perseverance, fun, collaboration, and curiosity. And one of the things that was brought up is like, is doing a logo robot, quote unquote, too simple for our team? Will we not get out the values that we want to? We, in the end, decided that using our core values, that we would still, learn a lot and grow a lot as a team and have a lot of fun in the process. So turned out to lead us down the right path, I think, in terms of, even something that's more mechanical, like, robot strategy, compared to, all of the other things that have been mentioned, like, what outreach we do. One of the things we started because of our core values was a team retreat, and, things like that.
That's a great example, Ian. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I have another example from our team. So we had used our core values and mission statement to decide on whether or not to continue using a supplier. And in the end, like, we talked about it as a team, had a great conversation. We ended up voting, and in the end, we decided to stop using that supplier. And I think it's just a really good example is that we talked over, like, does this align with who we are as a team? And we decided no. So
Yeah, 3926 also used our core values for that discussion last year. I know a lot of teams had that discussion. Having, a set of defined core values really helped us, come to a consensus, a near unanimous consensus really quickly.
I would say we also had that same conversation, but last year we had a pretty difficult year in terms behind the scenes and things like that. It all kind of started with our drivetrain. We were looking at going swerve, but we didn't feel that some students didn't feel, mentors didn't feel we were ready to go. And so when it came to the decision about what style of drivetrain, we used our core values for coming up with that decision. Actually had a really awesome first year mentor step in and kind of lead that conversation because of his experience in the work world. And he was impressed with the core values that we had. So that was really cool. And then as the season went along, the week prior to the Lake Superior Regional, we had a practice field in our building, and it led to a very hard conversation with our leads and coaches and some mentors, where we sat down and we really looked at where we were at with our core values. And I myself was not following some of the core values, and students had their rights, and they did. They told me to my face that I wasn't following some of the core values, which was I know it was very challenging for them to do that, but it was I think a turning point. And I'll let Stove or Kaya, give their perspective on it. But I think it was kind of a turning point in some things that just needed to be talked about and looked at our core values and what was happening or not happening.
I think that conversation that we had was a really great example of us following our core value respect. We were all able to just sit down and be brutally honest with each other, being able to work through frustrations or fears or things like that we had with where our robot might be or where our team is at, or just difficulties that have come up throughout our build season. We were able to just be really real with each other. And I think that because we have really stuck to these core values, and because each of our leads and each of our students and our coaches have really taken these core values to their heart, and they really try their best to show them every day, I think that we were able to have that conversation, and we were able to work through all of these difficulties. And I know that since then, I've seen a big difference in the community of our leads, and the openness that we have. We don't have the fears that might come with addressing a problem and things like that.
Yeah, I think it would have been a lot harder to have that conversation without us having our core values there, because it allowed us to have a goal to reach for and have an understanding that we all shared.
Great. Thank you. Lexi.
I really resonate with that and what you guys are talking about having a fair metric that everybody can look at. Some of you have heard about the process for selecting leadership on KnightKrawler, and I think that's one of the areas where students really interact with our core values, because every leadership candidate, every student grades all of the leadership candidates on a rubric of our core values. So scale from 1 to 4, how graciously professional are they? How dedicated are they? How innovative and, committed to structure and unflappable are they? And so I think that's a way for students to really ensure that who we're bringing on to, the people that we kind of hold up on our team, the people that we're going to hold up as examples, how do we ensure that they are going to continue to have a culture that we want to have? And I think core values are really powerful and structured way of doing that and ensuring that that stays consistent year to year.
Lexi, could you tell us a little bit more about that process that you use? Is it for all? Which leadership team members do you do? When does that happen? How do you, and who looks at those results and kind of,
Great question. So I'll walk you through the whole process just so you have some good context. Any student can apply for any leadership position. And even so, let's say last year I was team captain. I want to be team captain again this next year. I still have to reapply for that position. So all of the positions are always open. Any student can apply. Students go through a process of reading a handbook, which has some expectations, doing some shadowing. And then what happens is we have a list of all of these leadership candidates, and our team advisor, Ms. Lee, usually makes the form. And so every student who's a leadership candidate goes on that form. It says, their name, a little bit of background about them in case you don't know them very well. Students have an opportunity to just kind of, this is a Google form, by the way. They have an opportunity to write down any positive or negative feedback they have for that candidate. And then it's quite literally a grid, and it has, on a column for gracious professionalism, a column for all of our other core values, and they get a score. And so I think often that comes up with the mentors, because mentors ultimately decide which candidates fit that role. We don't do a student vote or anything. The students on KnightKrawler get to participate in this process through either becoming leadership or going through this feedback process. And so looking at that feedback, it can come up in a leadership candidate's mentor interview. They might say, hey, we've heard about, this experience that you had, like, can you speak on that? But it can also be a really great way for mentors to see, like, oh, maybe this student was on the drive team, and when mentors weren't there, they didn't always behave in the most graciously professional way, and we don't want to lift that up. Or this person doesn't always speak up, but their peers have said they are so dedicated to this team, like they really would fulfill this position well. And so it allows us to kind of get a full perspective of each student kind of through there. Does that make sense? Is there anything else I can answer?
No, that's really very helpful. It's great that you have an actual rubric that you kind of go through to kind of quantify kind of how you're assessing, I think, leadership, which is great. There's a question in the chat about core values and travel and like selecting who travels with the team. Kaylee, you're going to answer that, or?
Yeah, I got an answer to that.
Okay.
And it sort of links very directly back to one of our core values, commitment. But of course, we always sort of wrestle with the fact that we also have inclusivity, and sometimes people struggle with like feeling included if they can't go to a travel. So we have minimum attendance on our team at least, and that qualifies you for travel. Of course, we have a smaller team. I know there's some teams who have like 60 people, and I don't know how they travel all together, but our team is I think it's 22 right now, 24, somewhere around there. 25. Okay, 25. I was wrong. But like it's about half of like what our actual build hours are scheduled for, and then we also have, and that correlates to like 18 hours a week essentially. And then we also have like, you need to attend some outreach events because that's important to our team. You need to show up during preseason, off-season training because it's training, and if you don't really know what's going on, you might have some trouble. And that so like we make our guidelines super clear for it. And fortunately, I think almost everybody usually hits it. Last year we had some issues with people hitting it, and that's why our new focus is this year. Every year we focus on a specific core value for the year, and we try to make that more prevalent in the team because we might notice it's lacking, and that's sort of how we fix those issues. And last year, commitment was a bit of an issue, so we're making that more of a thing this year, hence why we're making it very, very clear about what our attendance, like what attendance needs to be done, what we are expecting of you, like that type of thing. And then we also encourage people to come, because if you come, you can have more say in what's going on with the actual team. Hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. I think you actually identified a little bit of a tension between these core values, right? In terms of inclusivity, you might interpret inclusivity as being, in the concept of travel, as being like everybody gets to travel, right? That's fundamentally maybe part of the way we define inclusivity. Yeah, that might come into conflict with sort of expectations with regard to commitment or some of the other expectations that you have where you're setting certain parameters in terms of who gets to travel and who doesn't.
Yeah, when I talk about inclusivity, a lot of what I've noticed in the past is like people get a lot closer after travel competitions, and fortunately our first competition is Duluth. So if you miss that, we could possibly come into issues with inclusivity because you missed a very crucial part of that part of the season where you're getting close to everybody, you're forced in hotels with them. You might get a little uncomfortable during like tensions in the pit or during competition. So that's sort of where I get into the inclusivity part, because it's super fun, but it's a great like team bonding unintentionally. So if you miss that, you might not feel as included because you weren't able to go. So that's where we have a little bit of a tension point, like Yoji said, with our commitment and inclusivity.
Sure. Jeremiah?
So this is great conversation because this is exactly what my team needs. But my question is, all these unique core values that you guys have and how awesome it's working for you. And first, I think Yoshi, in the introduction, you said that there's an activity where you go and each team members identify 3 to 4 of their own personal core values. But then I kind of, maybe my ADHD brain was racing somewhere else. But how do you take all that information and, develop a team core values? Like, if you have 20 people on your team and they have 3 to 4 things that they hold near and dear to them, how do you take all of that and then, come up with something that, maybe 4 or 5, values that embodies the whole team?
Yeah, great question. And I think I'll start, and then other
people
going through this process with, at least with me, can kind of talk about how we did this. So you're right. We had, like, for example, if you have a team of 20 students and mentors, we would ask each of those individuals to basically identify 3 or 4 really important core values to them personally. And then you do end up with this large list. You end up with a list typically somewhere between 40 to 60 or 70. Some people will have the same core value, right, listed, but you'll end up with a large number. And then we actually list all of those on a couple of sheets of paper, essentially, and put them up on the wall in a room where everybody's together. And then we ask everybody to take a look at all of those values, and then we ask them to go through that process again as a group to pick 3 or 4 of the most important ones, right? So by doing that process, you start with, say, 60 core values, and you end up with somewhere between 15 to 20, right? Typically, you'll get about 15 to 20 core values where at least 3 or 4 people have indicated that's a really important core value for them. And that's the group, that's the set of core values that we narrow down to that 15 or 20. And then you have to do it again. You got to kind of iterate again and kind of get it down to somewhere between 4 to 8. And so typically what we do is we basically break the team up into smaller groups, and we ask each of the small groups to take that list of 15, say, core values and group them together, right? So that you end up with these groupings of anywhere between 4 to 8, because some of those values are going to be very similar to each other, or that makes sense to put them together. And so each small group does that, and then we look at the lists that each of the small groups come up with, and then there's a whole team-wide discussion about, okay, it makes sense for us to put this value together with this value. We want these together because that's the way we kind of think about this particular core value. And you come to a kind of group consensus with regard to how the final set of like 4 to 8 kind of core values. So you have like you have like the core value, and then you have these other values that come underneath it. And those are used to basically help you define what you mean by that particular core value, right? So that exercise, at least the way that we've done it, takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do. And then you have to basically follow that up with some additional discussion about each of those sets of values and kind of helping you define exactly what you mean by respect or by trust or perseverance or confidence, for example. So that's kind of the way that we end up doing it. So, Justin?
Yeah, I wanted to share, like, for example, our integrity. You talk about grouping them. When we define integrity, we say we strive for honesty and speak up for what we believe is right. So in that grouping, Jeremiah, there was like, I clearly remember this one. There was honesty, in with that kind of group of words. So we just used integrity and then included some of those. Interesting fact for our team, and Yoji, you probably remember this, is our fun for our core value was probably the most interesting discussion. I don't want to say heated, but it was just like, it created a lot of discussion of whether or not we include fun or not. And one of our mentors, that's no longer mentoring the team, but still pops in every once in a while. I mean, I just clearly remember him standing up and go, well, here's the deal. I'm not coming back if we're not having fun. So, why do you come back? Because you're having fun. And that was really cool to see. Yoji, I think you have it on your docket for later, but we're looking at reviewing our core values, and how does that process work, I think is something that would be valuable to share at some point, tonight.
Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. Yep. Dominic?
Yeah. Also thinking about like our core values on 2491, we have passion, accountability, gumption, and unity. And so, thinking about other teams' core values like Green Machines with like dedication, that can fall under like multiple of our core values. So sort of figuring out like before anyone joins the team, no one really understands what gumption means, but we chose that as a core value because it really embodied what we wanted to do. And then, we have probably about a paragraph or so under each core value that really talks about what the team thinks those words believe. And a cool thing that our team does that Toby, one of our mentors, have been really doing this year is we've been making small like void books that for like different team processes. And so we have one on our core values. And so that's talking about like, here's our core values, and having like a physical sort of representation of them that we can bring, that we have in our shop, that we can bring to competitions. And so then when people ask about them, we can be like, here you go, let's take it off this shelf and sort of show, here's our team language about our core values.
Jeremiah, does that help? Great, thank you. Dominic, I think you brought up a really good kind of additional point for discussion, which is sort of, I love the idea of like having a book or some other kind of physical manifestation of your core values. What do other teams do? I refer to them as kind of artifacts, right? Those are kind of visible reminders of kind of your core values. And there are lots of creative ways you can do that. Your book is a very creative way of kind of reminding yourself as well as others about your values. But what other kinds of approaches do teams have? I know many of you have very interesting approaches. So, Evelyn?
We put our core values on our lanyards, and I think they're on the back of our name tags also, so that you don't like forget them because you're wearing them all the time, so you look at them a lot. And at our retreat, we made these new tie-dye shirts with the core value like as a spiral design on the back. And earlier we were talking about like putting that spiral design more places. So just kind of like having our core values out as like a reminder, so they're like always there.
Good, thank you. Anna?
Yeah, for the Robettes, we have all 5 of our core values on laser cut pieces of plastic, and they are hung up in our build space. So every day when we walk into robotics, we're reminded of our core values, and then underneath each of the core values, there's a little bit of a description of what they mean to us.
Nice. Anybody else? Joseph.
Yeah, I entered late, so this may have been a question that was answered earlier, but how do you all sort of go about the process of like sharing your core values with your team and constantly reminding your team of those core values? Because it occurred to me that like, as Dominic said, like we have our board books and those are like a really great way of like, we keep those in the shop where our build team meets a lot of the time. But it occurred to me that like before those were created, we weren't always very good at like reminding our team of these values, or even like introducing them to the team. We usually have a team retreat where we would talk about them a little bit, but like we don't usually go too in depth and remind people of them throughout the course of the entire season until those board books were created. We would have like our ops team would be like the ones that could like recite these entire paragraphs about all 4 of our core values, but like the rest of our team was not always like entirely in the know about what does gumption even mean. As Dominic said, it's a weird word that does not exist too much outside of the no mythic space for a lot of our students. And so I guess my question is like, how do you like introduce your team to these core values, and how do you constantly remind them of them throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, it's a great question. Madeline?
So to answer your question, so we introduce them at retreat and then sporadically out throughout the year to make sure people remember them. We'll have like little quizzes like, who can recite it, or even for the mission statement as well, and make it a little game, like make it fun, like, do you remember all the core values and stuff like that, to make it more fun. But then, like you said, we have them hanging up. They're bright pink, like you can't miss them. And then one of ours is actually upside down confidences. And it's kind of funny, but it makes people ask about it and gives us a chance to talk about our core values because it's upside down.
Nice. Yeah. Kaya?
So every day at our lunch, or not every day, but every week we have lunch meetings where everybody comes in and we do like a slideshow. And at the very beginning of the slideshow, we like do all the core values, or we go through them all. And I think this year we've been trying to highlight one per week so that we can work on it and build it more. And I think last year me and another lead even wrote a song about them. So it's easy to remember.
Do you have a recording of that song so we can all hear it?
No, and I'd sing it if I could remember the lyrics.
That's a great idea. I really like that idea. Yeah. So
it was themed to the 12 days of Christmas.
So you intentionally do this every week, like at the start. So like it's just part of your agenda. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. We make sure to review it each week.
Interesting. Okay. Jeremiah.
If anyone's still answering Joseph's questions, let them go ahead. I have a different question.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? I know there are other approaches that people have used. I know maybe Kaylee or Evelyn, you can talk about our retreat and kind of what we do there.
Yeah. Okay. So this during our retreat, usually it's an overnight retreat. We finally got back into that because COVID caused problems. But we do overnight retreats, and that helps with like even getting your kickstart with the core values like joy of life, inclusivity, trust, like all of that, because you're staying in a hotel room with somebody that you might not know very well. Like for instance, Evelyn was a rookie. I'm a senior. We were in the same hotel room. We're now friends. We were friends before that, but like we're closer friends because we were in a hotel room together, right? It creates friendship. But on top of that, we also go over like all of our core values, how they sort of originated. We talk about the initial core value that we decided for the year, which I talked about briefly before. It's commitment. And then we also sort of have our this or that's, which often relate directly to our core values. And we are encouraged to link our core values back to our this or that thing. So an example of this or that would be, what was one that we used during that Yoji? I know we did the kit bot things versus using those and not using those. And yeah, I was able to link one back, but that's the only one I remember.
We had that one. We had like the kit bot, what people thought about the kit bot and how that was related to our core values. We've had other ones like just sort of like, would you like, even ones that were robotics related, I think we had one like, would you rather win a regional or would you rather win state, right? And sort of it has interesting discussions about kind of priorities and kind of how.
There was clean dishes, like put them in clean them all at once, or let them clean them as you put them in the sink, or clean them all at once, which actually sparked quite a bit of debate. But we brought it back to core values magically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's another approach. Evelyn?
And then like adding on to how we have like a core value that we focused on every year. This year was like commitment, and at the retreat we were given like little notebooks and we like wrote about what commitment means to us and like what it means to like to commit to our team. So we had time to like everyone had time to like actively think about it and like make sure that that's what they wanted to do and like that's what was expected of them.
Good. Lexi.
Something that's just a lot smaller is I write a weekly update that like gives our parents and our students a heads up of what's coming for the week ahead. And I always have a section in it that we call kudos, where I just throw a shout out to like random things that I saw people do. And a lot of the times I'll try and be like, oh, you know, I'll use this week's as an example. I saw 2 students who were always just helping out others on the programming team, offering assistance. And I was like, that was really graciously professional of you. Like, keep it up. And so just like incorporating when we give praise or when we give kudos, like incorporating those core values as a reason why just like lifts up those behaviors a little bit. Yeah, small stuff too.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that a small thing, Lexi. I think that's a really important kind of message about how you can use core values, right? Because I think a lot of times we talk about like making sure that people live up to our core values, but oftentimes it's done in maybe kind of this expectations about not meeting them in certain ways, where you want to actually celebrate when you do see your core values being met, right? And oftentimes we ignore that or we don't acknowledge that, I think. And so that's another important kind of thing to kind of keep in mind, is that you want to be able to celebrate those wins, right? That's what makes your team what it is, and that's what you're striving for. So when you see those core values being met in a really significant way, you want to make sure that people know about it. So I think that's really important. I think for 1816, the most important core value has been this joy of life. That I think more than anything else, and I think we have multiple examples now since we identified that core value where we can remember as a team kind of when we saw joy of life being demonstrated, and I think that's I think it's been one of the most important kind of impacts, I think, of having that particular core value for our team. So I think it's a great idea. Yeah. Other examples before we get to Jeremiah's question? All right, Jeremiah.
You can't say I didn't give you opportunity.
Exactly.
Anyway, our team 878, when we started out 2022, well, pretty much it was a new guy in a new school, had a new vision that nobody's familiar with. He didn't even know how much he was getting himself into. And so how many kids are willing to take this risky ride? Well, they did, and we're still going strong. However, I'm trying to get more of an, organized chaos going, and core values and all of these things are all part of what I'm trying to get these kids to understand, that the team is more than just about building robots and competing at competitions. It's about developing people who would communities and that mindset. Now, my question is, sometimes it's really harder as a teacher. I'm one of those people that I don't like to start something new in the middle of something. Sometimes I just patiently wait until the beginning of a new unit or the beginning of the new mark in a quarter or the beginning of a semester, just because a new beginning kind of get people a reset mindset to get, So now, with all these core values things going on, and I've been having some internal conversations, how do you want to approach this for a team that hasn't really had a discussion on any of these things? And you have kids with mindset, attention spans are all over the place, because I have a very small team of, on a good day when we're taking field trips, 10, work time, 4 or 5 kind of group. And so how do you approach that? What would be kind of an advice to how do we, start the conversation and get it developed into something that will impact the team now and the team in the future?
Great question. Dominic?
I know one thing that really impacted our team culture was when Phoebe became team captain 3 years ago at this point. She was super passionate about, really improving the team culture and, shifting it to be more inclusive, to, be a really safe space for everyone on the team. And so really having that sort of ability for students to step up in leadership positions, because, you might have students that, struggle with authority, that, aren't necessarily there to, be lectured at. And so really having sort of a student or a couple of students be willing to sort of step up and be like, okay, here's a point of improvement that we should make, I found can be really helpful. And with that, then, like, with the turnover of students, the ability to bring in new ideas, that you can have a student that's been on the team for 2 years, that have been, working away, learning about the team, learning about FRC, and, they can be like, oh, here are ways that our team can improve that maybe captains or mentors might not necessarily see. And so then when they get into leadership positions, they can be like, okay, here's my list of like points I want to improve about the team when I'm in leadership, when I'm a captain, when I'm a lead, that I feel like can be really helpful to sort of bring in those new perspectives every few years or so.
I would say, in terms of introducing new topics and ideas, even as an established team, we're kind of going through this with KnightKrawler right now. We're really going to use that time before kickoff to kind of introduce these new ideas. Now our students are familiar with like what being on a robotics team is like. And so now we can bring these more almost like philosophical ideas of like, what are you doing with your time here and whatnot in this little break that we have between like all the training that we've been doing and the chaos of build season, and like utilizing these next couple weeks in December to really like reflect and set goals. So I think, Jeremiah, you could almost use this, like have like a mini preseason right before kickoff where you introduce your students to these topics and say, okay, we're about to hit something that's going to be a challenge. Like, let's set up some things that we want to do before then so that we don't have to have this discussion during the chaos.
Other thoughts or suggestions?
And that's exactly, that's exactly kind of, because I know once January 6th come and everybody got going with that brilliant ideas, and sometimes like we had an issue last year where I had a student that was on the team, people saying things, all over the place, and and I'm like, look, time out. If you got something that you don't like on the team, bring it to the table. Let's talk about it, because you're telling person A or person B, but then you're not really addressing the matter. It just doesn't fix anything. And then it came down to it. One of the issue was, oh, the robot that we built was not, we designed, the girls' design was not incorporated in the robot that was built, and so then when you kind of just go down the line, like, okay, look at this element of this robot and look at this element from the initial, draft, what you put on paper, but then I think she realized later on that your initial thought process is not always going to be your final product. And that was the thing. But how many times we had to go through the process of putting things on, taking things up because it wasn't working this way. And because we don't have the system where you can design everything on a CAD system and make sure you test it out and it works before you go ahead and then you build it. But we prototype 15 different times something before we finally put it on a robot. And so some of those things were just things that I feel like if we have a team culture or with core values, things that could be like, okay, let's go back to this as a reminder, like, hey, let's go back to this. And so I'm kind of trying for us to kind of get ahead of, well, not get ahead because we're kind of like, we're already late in the game, but somehow, forge our way forward into some, like so you just said, something before the calm before the storm, figured out something there before we can hit the, yeah. Thank you.
Sophia?
This is kind of just relating back to what Jeremiah was talking about. And Mr. Scheider, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But just kind of relating to the moment where like people's designs weren't being incorporated, that kind of ties into our core value respect. And for each of our core values, we have a little sentence that kind of explains like how we follow them. And so our one for respect is we honor everyone's opinions, goals, and actions. And I'm not personally on our like design and fab team, so I don't know exactly the whole process of coming up with the robot design and how we incorporate people's ideas. But even just from our lunch meetings and from like recruitment meetings and when we're talking about our departments, like we've just been very clear from the beginning that, hey, like your idea may not be used, but we want to hear it and we value everything that you have to say. And I think just like clearly reinforcing that each time before you get into that chaotic moment, like we value all of your ideas. We want to listen to what you have to say. Like we want to see what you can come up with. It's just we may not be able to incorporate that. It may not become the final design or our final goal or things like that, but we do want to hear it. So yeah, that was just kind of how our team relates to that.
Wonderful. Kaylee?
I'm just wanted to add in what Sophia was saying about how like everybody's design and opinion is important, right? So like even though at least for our team, even though it might not be put into like the actual finalized product, it still helps come up with more ideas essentially. My first year when I was designing a endgame climber mechanism and I couldn't figure out how to get it up. But we looked at another design that was initially on the robot. This was like a second version of it that had this elevator mechanism, and we pulled from that. So like just because your design doesn't always get into the robot doesn't mean that it like parts of it won't be essentially. And I think that's really important to explain, at least in my opinion, because it helps prevent a lot of, oh, but it's fully my design, or oh, we didn't get to use any of my designs, like that type of thing, a little bit of anger that might create.
Dominic?
Yeah, I also know a thing that we like to do that our school actually introduced us to, that during the big discussions during kickoff, we really like to do a thing we call orbits, where we have a talking piece and we send it around to every single person in the circle and are like, okay, what are you thinking about this design, or what are your ideas for this design? And they can pass if they need to, but I think that really helps sort of equal the playing field almost, of you limit the people that are talking a lot, and you sort of give a platform for the people who might not be as confident in, really fleshing out their full ideas and sharing it with the entire team, which I feel like can be really helpful. And so we do that a lot for a lot of our big discussions when we notice a lot of people are not sharing as much, or we have a few people who are sharing a lot. And so I think that really helps with those big discussions and including everyone in them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've never heard of that. That's a really great suggestion. So just a couple of things, Jeremiah. I would say just remember that I think the two things that kind of link together in this discussion, we're talking a lot about core values today, but also mission is really important as well to kind of define, like having a very clear mission statement. Because oftentimes in those mission statements, that's where you can really articulate that this is about more than just building a robot, right? It's a lot more than that. So if your team can go through a process where you can define what your mission is as a team for Aerobot, that can help guide your subsequent discussions about values and core values. The two really need to be kind of linked together, because I think without one, you really can't do well with the other one. So defining the mission statement is something that you could, I think, probably think about doing actually before kickoff if you can. Even a preliminary kind of mission statement might be able to help you, and then kind of have that discussion after that about kind of what are the values that kind of will help us get there, help us meet that mission, right? Is another thing to kind of think about. We've done this core values exercise with teams as small as like your size, 10, to as many as like 70. And I would say it's actually better with a smaller group. I think it works better. Everybody can participate. Everybody can kind of buy in. It's really hard and challenging when you've got 50, 60, 70 students kind of participating. So that's another thing that's in your favor. And then I just want to remind you about something that I remember Woody Flowers always talking about. He was like, our society underestimates the ability of young people to do great things. And that's one of the reasons why he really started and co-founded FIRST Robotics. And I'm always reminded about this because when I brought this idea to 1816 in the fall of 2017, I was very skeptical that high school students would actually take this seriously and do a great job with it. And I was completely wrong. It's completely wrong. Like every team that I've worked with on this exercise typically does a better job than adults in these large organizations and companies can do. So, we just did one recently with a team, and literally within 30 minutes, they did the work that a company would take 2 years and external consultants and all these other kinds of things to figure out. And so I think just remember that your kids are probably, your students on your team are probably more than ready to have this kind of discussion and work on this kind of thing and do a really, really great job. That's been my experience in 5 or 6 years of doing this with all of these different teams from all over the state. They're amazing. So just kind of keep that in mind, that they'll come through for you for sure. You give them an opportunity to do it and they'll be able to do a great job with it. So Candace, I think you're next.
I just wanted to say, don't feel bad if you don't get it all accomplished in one day. I know that our team had several little workshops where we worked out what we were going to do, especially when it came to the final, every vowel and every comma in our sentence describing what our core values were up for debate. It was a lot of hard work, but they were so proud of themselves when they were done. And they have stood the test of time. I think it's been, 5 years now or longer. And I think they've hung in really well.
Joseph.
Yeah, sort of bouncing off of that. Yoji, I like that you brought up, like, even just bringing a preliminary mission statement would be really useful. And I think I joined the team in 2020, so this is like years after our team had set or even finalized our core values and our mission statement. And I'm honestly kind of glad that I wasn't on the team when we did that, because I think that, for me, like the idea of creating a mission statement and creating and writing down and documenting our core values would be so daunting to me, because I would think that, I would have the mindset of like, we have to do this, and the first time we create these, that it has to be final. And I think, our team has, as I said, like, we've had our core values, we've had our mission statement for, a while now. I can't say for sure, like, when we finalized our mission statement, but, I do think it's important to say that, like, when you first create your mission statement or when you first create your core values, I think it's important to be open to change and expect and accept that they will change, because I think that's how you make the most effective and powerful mission statement and core values. And, again, we have not had to change our core values or mission statement for a while, but, I would expect that, if we were to have a student voice a concern about, maybe these core values do not represent where our team has gone since we've created them, I would expect that, it would be a lot of work, but I think that we would go through the process of reevaluating them and changing them if need be. And so I do think that's important to bring up as well.
Yeah, so Joseph, maybe this is a good segue into, I think, a question that Justin had kind of earlier in the session, which is like, how do you, like, do you ever review them or change them or kind of revisit the core values? How would you do that? I would say, yeah, I'm not gonna, maybe I don't want to speak up for Kaylee and Evelyn, but I think our core values have been pretty stable and really haven't changed since we first came up with them. I think part of that reflects the investment that we took at the beginning to kind of really figure out what they mean. But I think maybe Kaylee and Evelyn, you could talk about, we do revisit them, I think, every year, right?
I'd say, yeah, we revisit them, especially at retreats, and we talk about like what exactly it means, which is sort of our vision of revisiting it. I don't think we've ever considered reiterating them ever, because a lot of our core values, they're like an umbrella term, right? But a lot of it is sort of be a decent person and enjoy it, right? Like respect and trust, like that's just things you need to be a decent human being. Obviously it's held to a little bit of a higher level when you're like at it's pretty much a sport. It's not a sport, but like, a varsity competition in which it gets stressful and you obviously need to like focus on it more than you might in your general day-to-day life. But it's very like crucial to how our culture is, like the team culture. So I don't think we've ever considered changing them. We definitely go over them. Everybody sort of has their own idea on what exactly it means, but they're all pretty general, and they all, I don't know. We don't change it, and it's very, very, like, that connects very directly to what our team wants to do, and if we were to change it, I think it'd be a lot, it'd be a very big difference, and it would cause quite the shift in our team. I don't know if Evelyn has anything to say to that, or Purdy even.
I think fundamentally the core values came out of, as Yogi said, a very intense, highly invested process that went on for, we went on for weeks. Like it might have been a couple of months from when the initial activity with the full group got moved to kind of a committee, a smaller group, and then brought back to the large group. We spent weeks and weeks, probably a couple months on that. And the idea that we went in with is, who are we? What makes this team, who the Green Machine is, who we are perceived as, how we perceive ourselves, what keeps us coming back as mentors, what makes students interested in joining the team and staying with the team. And once that was identified, it became, the 5 core values became so fundamental as to who we are, what we stand for, how we stand, why we stand, that the idea of a revision hasn't really come up more, but we have revisited regularly, not just at retreat, to make sure that we're all, starting the year together again on the same page, on the same foot, but also to emphasize how these very fundamental values are used now, today, even though they were identified some time ago. I think to stray from that, to change them, would change the very fabric of who this team is. So revisit, yes. Reemphasize, yes. Revise, not so much. We have revisited and revised our mission and our vision statements a number of times to make sure that they are in line with our core values and where the team is in our school and our community, where we find ourselves within the FIRST community. Is that helpful? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's great. I appreciate it. Yeah. Jeremiah.
I will allow Scott Davis to go first since he already has a core value and I don't.
Okay. All right. Scott.
I was going to add to this idea of changing your core values and how it fundamentally would require a change to your team. I actually suggested to our leadership crew that we either replace one of our core values or add one. During the protests in 2020 for racial equality, KnightKrawler underwent some fairly significant structural changes in focusing on equity, making all travel fees optional so that no one felt like they couldn't attend a regional due to costs. Restructuring some of our requirements around how people could qualify to attend an event, and some of our point structures, which if you've been on the call before, we've talked about points a variety of different times. And today, equity is actually a major part of our team, and I raised the suggestion that we consider revisiting our core values because our team has shifted, and a lot of the structure we put around our team is different as part of that shift. So I think our leadership team, when we met this fall, decided that we were going to attempt, as things sort of slow down, as regionals wrap up, and if we qualify for state, if we qualify for champs, we only have a few things for a few students to do, that we do an all-team reevaluation of our core values at that time.
Good. That's great.
So, and I'm glad I allowed Scott to go first then, because, listening to all these core values this evening, confidence, trust, fun. I mean, really, when do you never ever want to have fun on your team? When do you ever want to stop building confidence, in people? And so I think more so, revisiting them and being sure that people understand the definition, or maybe being clearer definition of each of those values is important than trying to change them up. And I think, like what Scott said, maybe instead of changing the whole programs, like, okay, let's add one, or this one is not, but I don't see it like, oh, we have, when you have a core value. Sorry, I got a 4-year-old who's but it's not about changing the whole program up, but it's like seeing what is working and what's not working. And in a sense, like if you thought integrity, oh well, I hope everybody think integrity will always be a part of our team, core value, because I think it's Kaylee who said it with you having an opportunity to advance your team, but how you're gonna do that is not really, it didn't seem ethical, and it's in making sure that your teammates were in quarrel with that. It kind of speaks a volume of the level of integrity of the people on that team, seeing like, well, this might push us ahead, but is that how we really want to? Is it meritoriously won, or is it something that well, it's not in the rule book, so we can't. So it's all these different things you have to ask yourself, like, which of these words are really living and which ones are just been asleep for these XYZ number of times? And so do we wake it up, or do we just chop it off and let it go?
Yeah. Great point. Good. Justin, for Sub-Zero, you talked about maybe potentially revisiting or reviewing them. How are you thinking about doing that? Is it?
I guess I don't know that I would say that we were looking at redoing them. It was more like, how do teams look at their core values every year? Like, in our side conversation here, Sophia, Kaya, and I were just having between the three of us about things on our team. One of them pointed out, it's really interesting to see how we've had team members that have joined that have had differences in the past. And when they've joined our team, they put those differences aside. And I guess that really made me realize how important they are, and that if we start to change up our core values, which again, really not what was on my mind, just how do we revisit those, and how do we reemphasize those? And I'll say you asked us to help present tonight, and I think we've learned more than we've probably shared. We have a side note document for the three of us to take to our team, and it's getting pretty long on things that other people have said. So I think we're just revisiting them, reemphasizing them more so.
Great. Sophia?
This is kind of just a more personal thing with our team, like looking at revisiting our core values. I personally am excited to do that just because I think when people like establish a more personal connection with either rules or with even like a person, they're more likely to follow those and like listen to those and really take them to heart. And so I'm excited because I want to see our team really make that connection with our core values, and especially for newer members. We have a lot of new members and we have a lot of seniors who are leaving. And so for these new members to get the opportunity to really make that personal connection with their core values, and just to feel like they have a say in them and kind of understand the history of why they're so important, I think that it's going to really emphasize why they shape our team the way we do, why we follow them. And just it'll give them that personal connection that I think is really going to push them to keep following them even once they leave the team or when they graduate or in other activities that they may carry on to.
Scott, let me go to Kaya next since she's on Sub-Zero, and then I'll get to you. Yeah, Kaya?
Yeah, one of the things that the reasons why I think we're thinking about like revisiting them would be that when our team originally made the core values, that was like a couple of years ago. So I wasn't even there when they were made. And I think that as time has gone on, our core values might mean something different to our more newer members than it did to the people who originally created them. And, a lot of things have changed since then. So I think maybe they mean different things to us now than they did then.
Mm-hmm. Scott?
I wanted to share some advice and a story too about the audience of who you share your core values with. KnightKrawler, we share our core values on information night, parent night. When the parents are there and they're learning about robotics, we talk about core values at information night. We talk about it at reveal night. So when we invite our sponsors in and our parents and grandparents in, we talk about them at reveal night. I believe last year Lexi incorporated them into our Impact Award presentation where the core values framed what was presented. If she wants to pipe up on that and tell me if I'm right or wrong,
yeah,
or do that.
Yeah, that's correct.
But I think that that's an important thing too. Is it's not just what is inside the team, but what's outside the team. A quick story is, I remember, I think it was 2019. We had a new principal at our school, and I heard secondhand that the principal attended our information night to learn more about what robotics is, and our team captain was going through our core values, and she turned to the side and talked to our student advisor, who was the teacher there, saying, maybe we should have the robotics team help the high school develop core values. And that's really cool that exposure outside of the team can make such a big impact. Not only making people aware of what your team is doing, but also making them think about, man, maybe this is something that I should be doing other places in my life.
I think Sub-Zero can also contribute to this train of thought or this discussion, because I know, Justin, you've talked to me about kind of the impact that this has had on your school. So maybe you could.
One prime example was a couple of years ago. Some of our student body at a sporting event decided to turn their backs when the other team was being introduced. And some of our team members were part of that. And that led to, a very interesting conversation with some of our coaches and mentors that also witnessed it. But yeah, definitely, I've been part of other areas of our school, and it's very interesting to know that that we are probably the only one that has core values. If you know anything about our team or about our school. We are perceived as not having the greatest sportsmanship. And last year there was a sportsmanship initiative, and I received the email about it. And I asked our activities director, athletic director, if I needed to do anything with this, because I think we have a pretty good set of core values. And his reply was, no, you guys are doing just fine. So that was kind of really good to hear. And it has made a big impact. And I think Sophia and Kaya both stated that it's our team is very different in our school from the fact that we have these core values and what is done for our team.
Eric.
But one of the things that's happened is I've been with the team for a few years, and you have your leaders or your captains on the team leave, and the actual values of the team change over time depending upon who's leading the team. Previously, there was a lot more anything for a win kind of values. How are we going to do that? And now I'm seeing a transformation in our new leaders is more of an inclusivity is more important. So I'll give you an example of that right now. And what we used for design in previous years was SolidWorks. And the head designers of the team and captains, they decide, this is really good because now we're, maybe not everybody can learn this. And of course, we can only run it on our computer, our design computer, because the students' computers can't run it. Well, this year they made and they really thought hard about it, and they changed to using I guess that same, I forget what the name is, DesignWorks or what everybody else is using.
Are you talking about Onshape, Eric?
Yes. So they decided that they were going to change to Onshape this year. Of course, now all the students could run it on their school computers, even though it wouldn't have the power or the. So that is a core value that they decided through a different leadership that was more important to have inclusivity of all the students being able to work with this than it was to just have the end product. So as I said, I guess what I was getting back to is a reevaluation of core values as the team structure changes, as your team leaders change over the years. They often see things differently. And then you might look, okay, now it's a new evaluation of what is the core values of this team that wasn't the same as it was 2 years ago. So.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I think, I don't know, I think my experience with 1816 has been that the 5 fundamental core values really haven't changed, but maybe the emphasis on different ones has changed from year to year, depending on leadership, I think, and depending on the makeup of the team. But in general, well, I don't want to say in general, it's definitely that the entire team, I mean, I think the intentionality involved in kind of making sure that all new team members kind of understand kind of what the team is all about, and it's all embedded in the core values is why that happens, I think. And from year to year, I think we might emphasize one core value maybe a little bit more than another, but I think there's a lot of effort that goes into kind of making sure that everybody who even considers joining the team understands what they're signing up for, right? That's kind of a key thing. And that goes for mentors too, actually. Like mentors, they need to also understand kind of what the team is all about and what's important. So I think that's the other important piece to this as well, is that it's not just the students, but it's also the mentors that need to be on board, I think, with the values that define the team. Yeah. Justin?
You made the point there about, recruitment and stuff. And our students talked about how we have every weekly meeting, we have it on the board. And whenever we do any recruitment meetings, we touch on it. When we, like Scott said, at our, parent informational meeting, which, we're hosting tomorrow night as coaches, and it's, the first slide, and that's really important that you're emphasizing right away and setting that culture for the team and the people that are joining or looking to join. We've had students that have came to an informational meeting, and I've heard that they didn't want to join because of some of our core values, and acceptance is one huge one on ours. And you look at the makeup of our team and the demographics of our team, and how we've had students that have felt comfortable sharing some information with our team long before they have shared it with other people around the school. They feel comfortable in that environment, which is was pretty cool when that happened, when they were willing to share some information. So.
Good. Other questions, topics for discussion? Scott, we're coming up on 8:30. I don't know whether that seems like usually when we kind of wrap up, but are there any last minute thoughts, questions, take home messages that you want people to have?
If we can fill up some time here before we let everybody go, looking ahead to what's coming up. Oh, we don't have anything on the schedule next week. Interesting. The Vikings play on Sunday night. Wouldn't hurt my feelings if we skipped next week. If no one signs up for to host a topic, by the way, if you're new here, we try to make we KnightKrawler kind of kicked this whole thing off, but we're trying to let other teams have a chance to give a topic. So if you would like to be a Dean's List candidate this year and you want to have something great in your interview, hey, hosting a conversation or giving a presentation is a great way to do that. I posted the link to the YouTube videos. If you want to go back and kind of get a feel for what other people have talked about or what they've done, feel free to do that. There's also a link in the chat for signing up for the mailing list. You'll get an email every single week about what this week's topic is going to be. It'll include links to the YouTube and to the sign-up list and all of that stuff as well. So you can always find where that stuff is at. KnightKrawler has a to-do list in our Scrum board of getting all of the Sunday night information on our website. Hopefully that'll be done in the next month or so. We have other higher priority things that need to get on the website first. But we have a task for that so that there'll always be a home base. I don't know. So last calls for Yogi asked if there's any final things that we want to share about core values. Does anyone have any other things they want to shout out just in general about FIRST or the Sunday night call or anything else? All right. Oh, Eric.
I think I shared this one before. At our weekly or meetings, we have something that's called the Awesome Sauce Box. And it's literally a cardboard box that you write in to give kudos to anybody on the team or any mentor that they did anything special in the last week. And then at our meeting, that becomes part of it. They open the box, they can read them. They call out and say, here's kudos to so-and-so, or this is what somebody, what's written on that paper is then said, this person, they helped special on this, they helped special on that, and then they have a little piece of candy they throw out to that person just as their reward. But anyway, I just thought that's something that's been part of our core of our team for years. I think it's sort of fun. It does give kudos on a weekly basis to anybody who's contributed.
Eric, I think that's a great idea. It gets back to what Lexi, I think, does with her kind of weekly updates with regard to kind of acknowledging and celebrating successes and wins. And those are really important successes and wins. And just if you can, try and link them directly to your team's core values, because I think when you see that linkage, that's when kind of the core values get embedded in your team culture. So that's a great idea. And Scott, I think this is a great way to end. It's just that's a really important take-home message. Is it's really important to kind of celebrate these really important wins about creating a really inclusive and supportive team culture by doing things like that. So.
Well, I want to say thank you. I'm sure everyone here, I'll put my mic on mute and give you a plug. Thank you so much, Yoji, and all of the students and all of the mentors who contributed. I think this was a fantastic conversation. I'm sure this will be one of our more popular rewatches on YouTube. And I look forward to following up in a couple of months and seeing if anything new has come out of this conversation, or to hear from teams that are doing core values for the first time. I personally, I think we all here think it's very important. And so I think this was a fantastic topic. And thank you again for everyone who contributed. All right, with that, you'll have to sign up for the mailing list if you want to know what we're going to talk about next week, because I don't know what it's going to be yet. So sign up for the mailing list if you haven't yet, and please join us. It's every Sunday, 7 o'clock. For those of you who are new, please come back. We have a lot of fun on the call. It'd be great to see you again. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.